Hey everyone, ready for a wild ride? We're diving into the world of Texas school boards, big money, and a whole heap of question marks around transparency.
It's a story for you.
We've got a stack of articles about this law, HB 2626, and honestly, it's a mess.
Oh, absolutely. Buckle up, because we're about to unpack a fascinating case of good intentions gone, well, a little sideways. We're going to break down this legal jargon, see what's really happening because of it, and hopefully get some folks thinking about who's calling the shots in local elections, you know?
Right, because on paper, this HB 2626 thing, it was supposed to make it crystal clear who's bankrolling the people trying to, shape young minds, who's funding these school board candidates, right?
Yeah.
Seems like common sense being able to see that.
Transparency, accountability, all that jazz.
Exactly. But then ProPublica and the Texas Tribune did this whole investigation, looked at 35 districts. Not a single one, not one of them fully followed the law.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild. So it's not just like a whoopsie, forgot to file the paperwork situation.
All right.
This law, it was supposed to make them, these districts, put their campaign finance stuff online, make it public. But here's the kicker.
Hit me.
They didn't give the schools any extra money to actually do it.
The classic unfunded mandate. Recipe for, shall we say, complications.
Total recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a tiny school district, right? Barely scraping by, probably.
I've seen some of those budgets, yeah.
And suddenly, bam, you got to become an expert in campaign finance law and figure out online systems all with zero extra help.
Like asking someone to build a house with just a hammer and hope.
And the articles, they kept saying this was the biggest issue, especially for the smaller guys.
Yeah.
But okay, even then, some of the excuses were kind of...
Oh, I bet. Let me guess. The dog ate their homework.
Basically.
Yeah.
Outdated websites, tech issues, the works. And I'm no Silicon Valley whiz kid, but how hard can it be to upload some documents, right?
Right.
The Texas Tribune called out this one district, East Texas Way. Took them months to post just one report, and only after they got called out. Makes you wonder.
Wonder what?
If maybe some folks were hoping nobody was paying attention.
Convenient how that works out sometimes, isn't it? And this is where, my friend, things get a little murky, like dark money murky.
Okay, hold up. Gotta unpack that.
Yeah.
For those of us who don't speak fluent political thriller, what exactly is dark money in this situation?
So, imagine you're trying to follow a money trail, right? But every time you get close, it's like the cash went through one of those spinning car washes they use in spy movies.
Disappears without a trace.
Exactly. That's dark money. Funds going into elections, but routed in such a way that you can't tell where they started.
And we're talking like, what, secret societies? Evil villains with briefcases full of cash?
Not quite. More like your PAC's political action committees. These groups, they often have structures so twisted it'd make a pretzel jealous. All designed to make it near impossible to trace the original source of their cash.
So instead of regular folks being able to see, okay, this candidate, they're backed by this group, it's more like, who knows where this money came from?
Yeah, it's all very hush-hush. And that's the big problem, right? Voters deserve to know who's trying to influence their decisions, especially when it comes to something as important as their kids' education. And even more importantly, they need to know why. What's the agenda behind the money?
It's like those terms and conditions nobody reads, but suddenly, bam, your data's being sold, and you're like, wait, what?
Exactly. And it's not just a hypothetical either. Remember that case in Midland, Texas we mentioned? The one with billionaire Tim Dunn.
Oh, yeah, the billionaire dropping some serious cash on a local school board election. That's not ringing any alarm bells or anything.
Well, it should. See, because of this whole dark money thing, it's really hard to figure out what exactly Mr. Dunn was hoping to achieve with all that generosity. Was he trying to get specific people elected?
Yeah.
Pushing a particular agenda? Hard to say without clear campaign finance rules.
Makes you wonder if these local elections are becoming less about, what's best for the kids in that town and more about some national game being played by folks with way too much money.
Oh, absolutely. And this isn't just a Texas thing. This is happening all over the country. These hyper-local elections, they're turning into battlegrounds for these big ideological fights.
So instead of arguing about the school lunch menu, it's like national debates about charter schools, vouchers, even what books should be in the library.
Precisely. It's like school boards are the new Wild West for these proxy wars. And it's not just the super rich or these shady picks either. The articles mention groups like Moms for Liberty. They're all about more parental control in schools, which on the surface sounds pretty reasonable to a lot of people.
Right. I mean, who doesn't want to say in their kids' education? It's just how that message gets twisted.
Exactly. Because a lot of these parental rights groups, the ones shouting the loudest about transparency and accountability, well, they're often funded by the very same opaque sources they claim to be fighting against.
Talk about mixed messages. So, how's a regular person supposed to tell the difference between a genuine group of parents who are, concerned and some AstroTurf campaign disguised as a grassroots movement?
That's the million-dollar question, and the answer boils down to one word: transparency. If we don't know who's funding these groups, what their real goals are, then having a real conversation about the issues becomes nearly impossible.
So it's not about, being suspicious of everyone. It's more like healthy skepticism.
Exactly. Don't just take things at face value. Do a little digging. Ask some tough questions like, is this group truly representing the community, or are they just puppets in some bigger political play? Local journalism is crucial here.
Like following the breadcrumbs, but instead of leading to a gingerbread house, it's like a giant question mark made of money.
That's a pretty accurate metaphor, actually. And while those investigative journalists, they're doing the hard work of untangling those trails, we got to do our part too, Stay informed, get involved.
So show up at the school board meetings.
Exactly. Read those finance reports, even if they're drier than week-old toast. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Put those board members on the spot.
It's like we're not trying to be conspiracy theorists here, but just, informed citizens.
Right. Healthy skepticism is a good thing. Because if this kind of stuff is happening with school boards in Texas, what else is going on? City council meetings? Zoning boards? It makes you think.
It really does. And I know for me, before diving into all of this, I kind of took it for granted, Assumed these local elections, they were about, local issues.
It's easy to think that way, for sure. But as we've seen, even those local races, they can be influenced by some pretty big forces.
Big money, big agendas. Makes you realize, even in your own backyard, it pays to keep your eyes open.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of a deep dive like this. It's not about pointing fingers or saying everything's rigged. It's about shining a light on the things that often get overlooked.
Empowering people to ask those tough questions. Demand transparency.
Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power.
Yeah,
right?
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to everyone listening, wherever you are, remember, stay curious, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay informed. Because what's happening in your community matters. And it's up to all of us to make sure our voices are heard.
And that's a wrap on Texas School Board finances, folks. Until next time, keep digging.